Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's the big voice guy, and I love every bit of it because that means I'm back with my main man, JP, affectionately dubbed Jacob Padilla. That's actually on his government, right? Jacob.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Two syllables, ladies and gentlemen. They don't call him Jake. They don't call him anything but Jacob or JP. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Oh, fudge. A little sleep deprivation, but we're good, right? I love it. In a good rhythm. We're kind of ramping up, starting to play better. Figured out some things we could potentially, we as in Westside, be getting healthy here in the next couple of weeks. So big x-rays coming up on Thursday just to kind of see where we're at and the risk reward for Mr. Benning. So we feel pretty good. Finally settling in offensively in terms of how we want to play.
Probably a good thing considering we got 1 week left of the regular season.
Yeah,
so.
but it's weird, right? I get it. But we it's been a little makeshift.
Yeah.
Losing a key cog offensively and defensively meant that everybody kind of had to ramp up one. And we lost the starting corner for the season and had to kind of figure out. We moved Teddy Rizak just 2 games ago to the safety spot. So it's a little like last year where we didn't really start to hit stride until later in the season. We weren't really much to look at. And I know everybody's like, I don't know if they're that good. And sometimes we wonder if we are because we're still a work in progress, but it's all about playing right at the right time as a few of these teams, Grand Island and a couple others are starting to figure out.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about Westside, why don't we just start with that? Because that was clearly the best game of the week there. Westside against Millard South, another case where we were both in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
It was a 41-34 overtime win for Westside. I don't know that I'd ever been in person for an overtime game in high school before. That might have been the first one.
Yeah, we had a couple of players ask what to do.
Well,
and I was kind of chuckling, and I was like, "Are you guys serious?"
Well, I was staying over by Bill Steckis, and we were like, "So what is it? They each get to go from the 10, or like how does this work?" Like we weren't even 100% sure on the rules.
And most recently, the last one that I coached in was against Prep 4 years ago. Where we went for it. We as back then, Omaha North went for it on 4th and goal because we didn't have a place kicker, didn't get it. Prep didn't move the ball and kicked a 17-yard field goal to beat us in overtime in the opener 4 or 5 years ago. So a little familiar, not exactly excited about going there because overtime it's a crapshoot. And it's all about bowing your neck inside the money zone, which is the 10-yard line.
Yeah, if you want a full kind of recounting of what happened, I wrote my story up on hailvarsity.com.
Which was spectacular, by the way.
Very,
very thorough.
Yeah, that's usually how it ends up going there. And that's why I keep the play-by-play and try to keep my own box score and everything, just so I have some more substance to as opposed to just, this guy made a really cool play, I'm gonna write 300 words about that.
And because you know what, that can be misleading.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to kind of watch how games unfold. That's why I like having huddle for all these teams, because I can actually put style of play, type of runs to the actual stats.
And like we talked about back with basketball, that's why I track games the way I do in that way, just to have as much information as I can. But that it was a phenomenal game. And Anthony Rizak again, you guys down right off the bat, 14-0. Millard South comes out. This is the first game I had seen with Cameron Kozel at quarterback for them. And boy, I was impressed. He makes quite a bit of difference for them. But down 14-0, and then you guys kind of settle in there. Anthony Rizak, 89-yard run for a touchdown to even it up at 14-0, and then basically from then on it was back and forth the whole way. You guys get the ball last. First you get the 4th down conversion to keep the drive alive.
Huge catch by Trevor Spady, a very difficult catch.
Oh yeah, and you got right before on 3rd down had dropped a little throw into the flat to get up some of that yardage. So it was like it wasn't a gimme down at any by any means, and you guys were struggling to run the ball with a handoff run game. So it was like got to go to the pass, and Spady delivered, and he had a few nice catches there, including the game winner. But so I keep that drive alive, march down, get in the Hurrdat again on a 27-yard scramble on a third down to get you guys inside the 10.
Yeah.
And then a couple near misses on throws into the end zone, have to settle for a field goal to tie the game. And Miller South runs the ball once and then head to overtime. So
were you surprised they weren't more aggressive, or did you understand?
A little bit. Again, with a situation like that, I think maybe you take a shot, but if you're worried about just the chance of bad things happening being greater than the reward there, like I get it. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't a great chance there that they were going to be able to march down and score, but yeah, they chose to kind of just run it out and take their chances in overtime, and then they won the coin toss and gave you guys the ball first.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? Because sometimes you kind of wonder. We wanted to defer, ended up winning or losing that toss, and it puts a lot of pressure on your offense to get in the end zone, because with Alvano and McClannon, I mean, two really good place kickers. You got to figure three's a gimme. So it was going to be all about getting touchdowns and not field goal attempts in overtime. And a huge fourth down conversion, a great pitch and catch. The only place Spady could go get it, who was really starting to round himself in a very, very good player and a two-way guy for us, as I'm asking him to play more defense for us now as well. And then, we forced the fourth down from Millard South, and we flush Koziol, who had made plays. How good is he? I mean, let's be honest.
The single most impressive play of that game, like the Hurrdat 89-yard touchdown was nice, but it wasn't defended well, and it was basically just a foot race. The single most impressive play of that game was the scramble. He evaded like 5, 6, 7 different defenders.
Three of our best tacklers had
their hands on him. Yeah. Like, it wasn't just like he had their hands on him, broke free, scrambled out to the sideline, chucked it downfield to Gavin Nunnally, caught it, 45-yard gain out at the 1. Like, just unbelievable play.
I mean, we had him dead to rights, and that's J.Q. Osler, arguably our best defensive lineman, Nick Englam, a very sure tackler, and Bo Ryan. I mean, those are 3 really good defensive players that Cam, and he shocked me, right? I've seen him. So you watch him play baseball, and it's different, right? Because you can't really tell You can tell athleticism, but you can't really tell athleticism. I mean, he's such a good hitter. I think that's what people are captivated by. But you looked at him in pads, and I had to walk up to him up close, right? I usually like to say hey to the guys, a lot of respect, especially some of the key players. And, Merton, those guys, hello to Rucker, because I've known him for so long. But looking at Koziol's build, I mean, he is a literal handful. The huge trunk, the great legs that generate all that torque, when he's at the plate, the great waist, he is not a tall guy.
I was going to say, not a tall guy, but
he's a
pretty strong.
Big guy, and he is extremely strong.
Yeah.
How about his accuracy?
Yeah.
I mean, some of those balls, say what you want about the wide receivers. They're fine. The ball placement.
Oh, yeah. Put them where only the guys could go.
Only those guys are going to make a play.
And there was even 1 or 2 drops on great passes like that. Like, if they could have pulled it in, could have been huge plays. But so I had Koziol 15 for 27 for 231 yards and a touchdown, ran the ball 10 times for 51 yards and 3 scores. And had the 1 interception at the very end of the game. You guys forced incompletion, or second down, roll out to the right. You flush them from the pocket, throw, not there. Second down, rolled out again, extended the play, looked like he thought he saw his receiver open in the end zone, but Ty Kiefer kind of hiding behind him, undercut the route, and picked off the pass to seal the game. And that's how it ended. Interception in the end zone on, I believe, their second play in overtime for Millard South. So heck of a play. And Kiefer's a great story.
Yeah.
Guy who's really good player early on in his career, plays as a freshman, really good as a sophomore. got hurt at the end of his sophomore season, ACL tear, then tore it again as a junior. So he basically missed a year and a half straight. And then to come back this year, he's having a great year for you guys. And especially it's really important for him to play well, considering you lost your other starting safety.
Yeah. And he has had to be huge. A lot of pressure on TK. We like to call him Chief Keef because he is a chief back there. But just a gutty win. And I think, typically for our guys, we're such slow starters. And it cost us against North Platte because they were so good possessing the ball. We just didn't get enough opportunities offensively against them. We did get some more opportunities against Millard South because we found a way to settle down defensively after a pretty shaky start. And, we forced a little inefficiency. 15-27 isn't, you're not blown away by it statistically, but he was on a rhythm there where we didn't know if we were going to be able to get stops there those first couple of drives. And we had to make some adjustments on the fly. And Christian Jones and Nick Anglam, all our guys that kind of have to adjust, our adjusters, were really in a bind all game. But Millard South's inability to run the football, I think ultimately was the key. It put a lot of pressure on Koziel and that wide receiving core.
And they had some success early on with that run game, especially running a little bit of the kind of option look and with some forward pitching type of stuff.
It's hard to handle.
Tricky to know where the
lot of formations, a lot of motion, and it's a difficult team to defend.
And Feller actually had some tough carries early on.
He's a tough kid.
Like I said, as the game went on, you guys were able to kind of key in on that a little bit and then force more.
He's pretty underappreciated.
Yeah.
He's a good back, runs hard. First guy seldom gets him. He's a good player.
Yeah. Tell you who's going to be a good player. Marion Jackson. He had a really nice touchdown catch in the end zone. The freshman there.
And we had limited his opportunities, but when they went to him, he made plays on a couple of 50-50 balls.
Yeah. So they got some good young guys to kind of carry on after the senior class moves on. But
interesting to see what happens without Koziel concept-wise with that offense, because some of his improvisation is so good.
Yeah.
Like his feel, he makes them different.
100%, like completely different team than what I had seen previously. And I mean, heck, with Brock Murtaugh at quarterback, they gave Elkhorn South, like that was a competitive game. Like he did all that he could in that game, but it's just a little different when you've got a guy that can throw as accurately as Koziel can, while also being able to
Brock's got fantastic size, doesn't he?
And
I'm a big fan.
They're a different team when you can put him outside and throw him a couple of those jump balls down the field, as opposed to him having to go make the play himself. It just makes him much more dynamic. Especially, it's big having him back at receiver and somewhat healthy now, considering they lost Austin Trotter, who was their big play threat. Who has
how good is
bombs.
Lacuna?
Big boy inside. He plays hard.
Ooh-wee. And here's the thing, he's mean-spirited.
Yeah.
So when he plays, it's not just, he's not handing out bouquets, right? He's trying to punish you.
You guys had nowhere to run up the middle. I mean, but between John Mesros and Kurt Kubrick, you had 11 carries for 30 yards. You guys weren't even trying anymore. Like, he's like, all right, Anthony, you guys got to take the lead here. And he, I don't think Ross even carried the ball in the second half, had the one fumble, but Rizak 19 for 26 for 299 yards and 2 scores, 26 carries for 182 yards and 3 touchdowns by my count. Very unofficial stats, but I haven't seen what your guys' box score was. But I mean, close enough, like close to a 300, 200 game, like flirting with it. And he's had multiple, like 3 or 4 games now where he's over 120 passing, 120 rushing.
It's become a very difficult offense to defend because our offensive line has got good size. They're really starting to come around, but the RPO kind of dual threat run game has been really, really tough to defend. And Spady coming into his own, Jalen Lloyd has been fantastic.
So, man, talk about, obviously transfers a lot of time, people, especially at the high school level, get demonized and all that. But you look at 2 guys that made moves that were good for them and that are paying off with, obviously Jalen Lloyd, that we're talking about, 8 catches for 127 yards and a touchdown by my count in that game. And then Isaiah McMorris, who's leading the state in receiving. 2 guys that made decisions for them to better their futures. And now Jalen, obviously,
getting a chance
phenomenal
to
tracks star. he's definitely got some interest on the football. He's gonna have a choice to make, and I don't think that would have been the case if he continued to play at Central.
Understood,
and so again, like some really great catches down the field, just kind of one-on-one, go beat your man, throw it up there, and he went and got the ball down the field.
He's so unassuming too. He's just a fantastic kid, pretty easy to cheer for.
Yeah, and he talked about having to move Anthony Rizak around after Caleb got hurt, moved him to safety, take that spot. Teddy, yes. Yeah. I don't know why I wrote Anthony down here twice. Teddy, he's having to play a little bit more offense now too, without Caleb in that spot as well. And he also went over 100 yards receiving, had some really great plays in that game. 106 yards on 4 catches by my count.
His best attribute by far is his competitiveness. He's already a really good athlete who's still growing. Had some schools that night in attendance watching him, Iowa in particular, Wyoming, still growing. He's bounced around. He was a corner, then he's an outside linebacker. Now he's a safety, still managing to play some wide receiver in a very complicated offense. Lot of upside for Teddy.
Yeah. So Westside moves on 7-1, got 1 game left coming up against Lincoln Northeast on Friday. So looking strong season again. And Millard South, that was the first loss with Kozel at quarterback, just 4-4, but I think
not a team that would be fun to prepare for.
Exactly. I think they've shown that, hey, they can play with anybody with the guys that they got now. So they moved up 2 spots, and Sauter's coaches pulled the number 8.
So that's 10. Is that 10 points or 9 points combined loss between Elkhorn South and Westside?
Something like that. I forgot what the score was against.
I think 31-28 or something like that. I better probably double check that, because if in fact that is accurate, that would be, that lets you all, that pretty much lets you know all you need to know in watching Millard South play, that those games have been really, really good.
31-28. Yep. Good call.
Yeah, that's 9 points. Or 7.
Yeah, 10.
10 total.
7, yeah. And so that's 2 one-score losses to 2 of the 3 best teams in the state.
Yeah.
Oh, so and again, they didn't have Kozel in that Elkhorn South game. So I think
not that Murtaugh is Sydney slouch, because the more he has the ball in his hands, the more of a headache he becomes.
But yeah, so again, Millard South is a team that you're going to have to keep an eye out for as we head in the postseason here. Back to the top, Gretna, 71-17 against Omaha South. I think Zane Forrest was done by halftime, 276 yards and 6 touchdowns. Corver Dema, who, congrats, committed to walk on at Nebraska.
Heck of a player.
2 sacks and a forced fumble. So again, this continuing to wreak havoc there. And then, credit to Omaha South, they just chuck it all game long.
Yeah.
They had 2 100-yard receivers in that game. Dylan Sheard had 12 catches for 162 yards.
A lot of people around the Metro like him.
And Eric Thomas, 11 catches, 127 yards and a touchdown. He went over 1,000 yards on the season.
It's pretty impressive.
14 catches. He also, even more impressive, he is 4 for 4 passing for 221 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I guess it seems like they've got some pretty good schemes over there at Omaha South. They just don't quite have the full team to compete just yet, but impressive to move the ball like that against a good Gretna defense, even if they didn't have their starters playing there that long. Another blowout, Elkhorn South at number 2, 55-14. They were up 49-7 at halftime. Carson Ronner didn't even play quarterback. They had their backup playing. I think Ronner ran the ball 1 time, but don't know what the story was there. But Cole Ballard, 10 carries for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns, or not more than 2, but he had 7 total touchdowns. 1 catch for 72 yards and a touchdown, and 2 punt returns for 51 yards and a touchdown. So not bad. His next game here, he'll go over 1,000 yards on the season. He's got 25 touchdowns on the ground
and played very few quarters.
Yes, 25 touchdowns.
He
on the
doesn't
ground,
see a lot of second halves.
4 receiving and 2 punt return. Yeah. So 31 total touchdowns, and again playing half the game a lot of these times.
I got to go back to something for Gretna that I think, a lot of people say what they aren't. I'll tell you what they are. That's a winning program. And this is 2 scary things. And I get it. 71-17, 14. At 8 guys carry the ball and 11 different players catch a pass.
Yeah. Got a lot of guys.
You'd be hard pressed to do that in a practice. No, listen to what I'm telling you. 11 different guys caught balls for Gretna on Friday night. Try that in a practice.
When they have 2-3 different guys throw passes during the game as well. Like Alex Wilcoxon did a little bit of everything as backup quarterback, receiver, defender.
There's no shame in saying this. And because you know this because I see you all summer. He's like one of my favorite people in the Metro. He's an easy kid to cheer for, and he competes, man. He is fearless out there competing. Like he just embodies their culture. Logan Sikora, these guys, they play hard.
Yeah, part of that Jacobson Craven family over there. That's a lot of good athletes coming out of that family tree over there for Nebraska. But and Isaiah Weber, I don't know how injured he is.
We'll see what happens with his health. Because I think they're going to need him.
Yeah, because he was really coming into his own. And I think with him, you could argue they're the most complete team in the state. Yeah. Again, Elkhorn South has a claim there. I think you guys have a claim. But those are probably the three that you like their pieces at every level on both sides of the ball. If they don't have that makes them a little bit more one-dimensional. It's pretty good to mention when Zane Forrest is a quarterback, but you still would like to try to keep teams a little bit honest. But we'll see how that plays out once we head in the postseason. And big game up like Elkhorn South closing out with Omaha North. We'll touch on them next because that was the big upset this week. Grand Island 31
really shook up the playoff standings, didn't it?
Omaha North 21. Yeah, it's looking at this matchup, I'll see in the collision course between Elkhorn South and Omaha North, last game of the regular season. Chance to see both teams. How good are you really? And here comes Grand Island playing spoiler the week before. And also, I think on top of being a great win for Grand Island, what does this say about Elkhorn South, who just demolished Grand Island out of their place the previous week?
So full disclosure, right? If you listened to us last week, we wondered how Grand Island would hold up playing back-to-back physical run teams, and all they did was turn North over 5 times via the interception route and found a way to play from ahead in that game.
Yeah, so that was 17-7 first quarter, and then they basically just traded scores the rest of the way. Grand Island held serve. Monster game for Jace Chrisman. 28 carries for 184 yards and 3 touchdowns, 8 tackles, including 3 for loss and 2 sacks. So if Omaha North couldn't slow him down, well, here comes Cole Ballard. So they're going to have to figure something out defensively because that's going to be as good as Chrisman was. Like we just talked about, Ballard's one of the best in the state. Tayshawn Porter, kind of 20 carries, 120 yards and a touchdown. Also caught a pass for a touchdown, did what he could, and is up to over 1,200 yards on the season now, 20 touchdowns. Also has that receiving touchdown, and he also has a 45-yard passing touchdown. So it's just phenomenal season for him. But
and don't blink,
fall behind.
Their 2 losses, Omaha Westside 47-13 and Elkhorn South 42-3. Now those scores are lopsided, but in between you've got wins over Kearney and North to kind of provide you with a little bit of confidence, and you've got to win over North Platte too if you're Grand Island, who is a team that not a lot of folks are chomping at the bit to play.
Yeah, and you mentioned 5 interceptions. Sebastian Serco, he's been really good for them since he's coming back, really balanced out of offense, been really efficient, accurate with his passes, but they definitely forced him into some mistakes. He's still a young starter, just a sophomore. 17 for 35 for 164 yards, 2 touchdowns, but those 5 interceptions, and they forced a fumble as well. So 6 turnovers from him. That's something he's going to have to learn from moving forward. He's still a very good player. But again, got to go through some adversity early on to make you better.
Yeah. Not to make excuses, but it's food for thought, right? You wondered how it would shake out for North, given the schedule that they had been coming off of, how they had won games pretty convincingly. And it can get away from you with a young team about not staying in the moment. And then you get a team like Grand Island, as well coached as they are, who's going to play hard every time out. I wonder, just getting in behind the scenes with Coach Martin, getting his team to understand that there's a certain level of emotion that you have to play with every night in the Metro. Because as we've seen, it's been a very strange year for ups and downs.
Yeah. With that win, Grand Island climbed all the way up to number 5 in the coaches poll, and they closed out with Omaha North. So I got a chance to close out the season 7-2 here, position themselves well for the postseason. And then again, I don't think 6 turnovers from the quarterback spot is something that you're probably going to see again from Omaha North, but they do have to find a way to shore up that run defense because Cole Ballard is going to run hard all night long against them.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see them get gashed the way that they did up front. And, kind of rounding out the top 10 with Kearney and North Platte. Kearney coming off the big win against Lincoln Northeast and had a chance to watch them on film quite a bit just because Northeast is our next opponent. And, of course, very familiar with North Platte and what they're capable of doing. 2 teams from a preparation standpoint that kind of stress you with how they attack you, even though they do it different ways. Kearney spreads you out, very good, putting your number 2, your flat defenders in binds, right? Very good route concepts, and we've seen what North Platte does in terms of that single wing and ground and pound.
Yeah, so that was a 46 nothing win for Kearney against Lincoln Northeast, and North Platte actually had to come from behind. They were down 13-10 after 3 quarters and outscored Norfolk 14-0 in the 4th to win it. Ran the ball 50 times for 263 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Seen that before.
Brock Robley accounted for all 3 of those touchdowns and 165 of those yards. Didn't pass the ball, didn't need to, but it was a 24-13 win for North Platte. And again, kind of stepping up late. We did skip over Creighton Prep. It's the other one we mentioned, and they barely got out of that battle with Papio with the win. 24-20 was the final.
Papio they're dangerous, aren't they? They're pesky, they're scrappy, they get good quarterback play. Papillion wouldn't be one of those fun teams either.
Yeah, and they got out of there with the win against Lincoln Southwest. They've been feisty in some of these other games. And Caden Russell, go-ahead touchdown with 6 seconds left from the 1 to win that game for Prep. They got the ball back, I believe, with about 4 minutes to go, down 20-17. Charmar Brown, 26 carries, 172 yards and a touchdown, but had to leave the game with an injury. I think he tried to go back in, but was clearly
not himself.
Yeah, not himself. So that's something to monitor moving forward because he basically is that offense at this point. But they continue to kind of rotate different quarterbacks in there and still haven't gotten consistent play there. But Pierce Johnson punt return touchdown really was a difference in this game. And that's the thing, like Prep just it's so hard for them to score the ball. They've got to find whether it's an 80-yard breakaway by Marty Brown or a special teams touchdown, defense, whatever it is. They've got to find kind of different ways to score the ball at this point, which lost one of their linemen, Rocco Marcelino. He's done for the year, unfortunately, suffered an injury. So Prep's kind of still moving along there, getting these wins. But
very battle tested.
Yeah.
But will it catch up with them? Because they don't get any easy points on offense. Like it has to be kind of a grinder, and defensively, they don't have a ton of margin for error because this is not the type of offense that wants to play catch up. If you're looking, before we get out of Class A, if you're looking for anybody to put on upset alert, is it Elkhorn South versus North? Is it Bellevue West, who's at Papio La Vista South? And listen, you talk about no love lost between two staffs that do not like one another, Bellevue West and Papio South. That one is kind of interesting to me because Bellevue West struggles at times to stop the run. Devin Jones and the company can be a handful, but Bellevue West coming off the bye.
Yeah, and I know Devin didn't play last week for Papio South. Not sure what the story is there. That obviously I think would make a difference for them. Lincoln East at Gretna. Maybe there's something there. Lincoln East coming off a big win.
It's such a tough place to play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's strange how the weather affects that field. If you're a quarterback, you have to be able to cut the wind. You have the wide open south end with very little tree coverage, and the wind just plays differently there. And it's a beautiful facility.
Yeah. Couple more shout outs for Isaac Pamaran, sophomore for Papio, at 18 tackles and 13 of them solo and a tackle for loss in that Prep game. Peyton Prestito, 15 carries, 183 yards and a touchdown, 7 tackles on defense.
And Coach Williams rolled the dice. He went young.
Yeah. And had some guys definitely step up and play well. Millard West knocked off Lincoln Southwest again.
That's a good win for Millard West. Puts them squarely in the middle of the playoff hunt in terms of seeding.
They held Lincoln Southwest to 7 passing yards on 12 passes, 5 of 12 for 7 yards, and the longest completion was 6 yards. So they had 4 passes for a total of 1 yard.
0 answers for Mr. Williams and Millard West, who had 3 scores. And I flew with a couple guys that were at the Southwest game that have vested interest in Southwest. They called it a bit of a giveaway in terms of that, but there's something about Millard West's resolve that you got to give credit to.
It's 23-13 Southwest heading in the fourth, and then Millard West scored twice in the fourth quarter to win it. And like you said, Jackson Williams, Millard West doesn't do max preps. I don't have numbers, but he's had some monster games. Season. He's got to be.
I think he finished with 6 for 178 in that one.
Not bad. I remember him running all over Millard North on that TV game a couple weeks back. Every time I looked up at the TV, he was running in the end zone. Cal Newell for Lincoln Southwest, 34 carries for 268 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's up to 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns on the season. He's had a phenomenal season as well. And then another guy for Lincoln Southwest, 55-14 went over Brian Max Butenbach, 16 carries for 270 yards, 4 touchdowns, plus a 27-yard reception, plus 2 punt returns for 38 yards. So just doing a little bit of everything for them. There's a few of the other big performances I saw in Class A.
Jumping down to B, continuing the collision course, though, aren't we?
Yeah. Omar Gross got to sit at home and watch because of the Buena Vista forfeit. Well, Bennington, they had to go earn it. 21-7 win.
I think they needed a game like that. Yeah. I think just to kind of, it had been since Elkhorn where they struggled early in that first half, and then they were dominant in the second half against the Antlers. Got another toughie from another Elkhorn opponent, and this time it was Elkhorn North.
Yeah, and Nick Hulbert, again, another big game, over 100 yards on the ground, 2 scores, also caught a pass, the 3 passes, one of them was for a touchdown. Trey Bird, 122 yards passing and a score, 94 yards rushing. So kind of the dynamic duo for them again, stepping up. And then Gunnar Lime leading that defensive effort, 13 tackles, an interception, which he returned 38 yards. He's had a really good season. We talked about him on the basketball court. He's a really good athlete in that back end there for a really tough Bennington defense who Elkhorn North, 7 points. They forced 3 interceptions from a pretty good quarterback in Josh Basilovic. So, and they held him to just 35 yards rushing as well. And he basically is their offense. So impressive defense performance by Bennington, but the Wolves made them earn it on offense. I think probably the closest game Bennington's had in a while. Like we said, Gross was on bye. Scottsbluff, easy 35-0 over Gehring. Sebastian Boyle, 259 yards on the ground, 4 scores. Is up to nearly 1,200 yards on the season on the ground, 18 touchdowns. That is kind of the one thing, like that they haven't scored as easily as some of these other teams with these lead backs, but he's still churning out the yardage. Braden Stoll, 91 yards and a score on the ground. And the defense, 7 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, and held Gehring to 140 total yards of offense. Not bad.
I tell you what, and 4 or 5 kind of remain locked. I liked how you tiered Class B a couple weeks ago. It's held true to form, even though had a couple litmus test games in there. I just couldn't get you to budge. You felt pretty good at how you were kind of locking those tiers in.
Yep. Elkhorn, 47-3 over Elkhorn Mount Michael. They just kind of plug along here. They had the couple of setbacks against
tough. Those are good losses.
Bennington and Gross early on. So 2 best teams, but here they are. They beat everybody else and really impressive, looking really impressive heading into the postseason here. And then Waverly, 14-0 over Seward. Not their most impressive win over the last couple of weeks. They've been a little bit more explosive than that offensively, but you pitch a shutout. That's I think coaches will take that any day.
Well, and let's jump down to C1 as we're well over the 30-minute mark. Just real quick, Aurora, Pierce, Ashland, Greenwood. Does it take a little convincing to put McCook in that discussion at 8-0? Now you look at the record against some like opponents, it does get my attention a little bit. Are you gonna? This is the hot seat again. Are you going to still tier C1, considering we haven't seen McCook live, or will you budge and take the bait and move them up a tier?
That was an impressive win for
Yes,
them
it
last week
was.
to improve to 8-0.
Yes, it was.
But only one team has Carlos Collazo.
Yeah, and that would be the number one team in C1.
Yeah. So I still feel good about kind of Aurora there, and then Pierce with that quarterback receiver duo with Schulting and Bramer there at 2. I think McCook is very, very clearly established themselves right there, though, in that next group. They'll be a contender in that class.
Well, the seedings will be interesting in C1.
Yeah. And we'll see kind of here as we wrap up the last week of the regular season. Jumping down a little further, we've already started the postseason for the lower classes there in the 8-man.
I kind of like that, though.
Looking at those playoffs that start this week, the number 1 seeds and the way they split this up, the first round they do 2 16-team brackets. For the first round, go west and east, and then winners advance, and then they kind of jumble up the bracket from there. And the 1 seeds in D1 this year, North Platte, St. Platts at 8-0. They'll face Elkhorn Valley in the first round, and then Laurel Concord Coolidge also at 8-0. And they'll face Meade in the first round. The 2 seeds are Riverside at 7-1 against 15 Maxwell.
I think Stanton gets the other one, right?
8-0 against Pender. And then the 3 seeds are Neela Oakdale at 7-1 against Cambridge, and Cross County 8-0 against Weeping Water. So anything jump out to you from
Cross County? Is the team to keep an eye on. Well coached, very experienced, expected to be here. Cross County is a very dangerous 3, in my opinion. I've seen them a couple of times. They have my attention.
Made a good run last year. Got some good athletes for sure.
And it's all of a sudden become a tough place to play too. A very raucous crowd. That the admin love sports. They got a great young coach who is, he just oozes energy. That Cross County has been quietly. It was a nice story last year, but they're like, hey, listen, we're not done.
Yeah. And Sauter's coaches poll, North Platte St. Pat's is number 1. Cross County is number 2. Neely Oakdale 3 and Stanton 4. Laurel Concord Coolidge 5. So those are the top 5 ranked teams, and they're all in the top 3 seeds there. And quickly in D2, the 1 seeds are Hitchcock County at 8-0 against Maywood Hayes Center, and Howells Dodge. We know about them, 8-0.
A absolute juggernaut is Howells Dodge.
And they are the number 1 team in the coaches poll. Hitchcock County's number 2. So looking at the 2 seeds
they're just so good up front.
Yeah, and they got some key guys back from last year's run. Can run the heck out of the ball. Yeah. And then Sandhill Stedford at 7-1 is a 2 seed against Hyannis, and Why Not at 7-1 is the other 2 seed against Winside. So those are kind of the top seeds there in D2, and those playoffs start on Thursday. Hard to believe postseason's already here.
Yeah, and you know what? We're absolutely ready. We will. We'll be back. We're going for Monday, right?
Yes, we should be Monday next week.
Day off for Nebraska, coming off the bye week. We can do the interviews for the coaches. Their pressures will be Tuesday. So I think we feel good about that, right?
Should be, yeah.
All right, we'll keep you tuned in. That's only one place to get all your high school needs. That is Nebraska Preps Postgame. That's my man Jacob Padilla. I am Old DB. We'll be back next week.